daughter Zoey had cancer at the age of 5, and she passed away at, oh dear Lord. She had cancer at the age of 3 and she passed away at the age of 5. Really, really helpful if I get my memories straight with everything.
Yeah, that's okay. That definitely happens. I lose times and ages and timelines and stuff now. It's so hard to keep track. And the longer the distance, the more I feel like that happens, where I have to like take a second to actually think about what's going on.
Yeah. And I'm lucky that my friends' kids are all the same age. So I was like, okay, you're this old, which means she would be this old. And that's how I coordinated all. Cause otherwise I was just like, I don't know how old she would be right now. She'd be 11. She'd be 11 right now. But yeah.
So this was 8 years ago?
July 4th, 2018 is when she passed away. So we're coming up on 6 years.
6 years.
6 years. Yeah, coming up on 6 years.
I guess take us back to 3 years old, new mom, still in the thick of it.
Yeah.
What happens?
So yeah, it was just dancing and playing, and my child was a runner, where if you have kids, you have the kids that stand still and stay next to your parents, and mine ran. She would always run on the sidewalk, but she would take off like I had to blue light her, which is the code at Strong Museum where your kid goes missing. I had to do that to her once. I was like, I don't know where she went. She just like took off. She was like such an energetic, happy-go-lucky, never sick child. She had one ear infection the February 2016. And I remember this because it delayed our trip to Florida because my parents are snowbirds. So her and I would go down there and it got delayed. And I was like, you're the one time you're sick, you're never sick. And so, yeah, but she fell at the barn park is what we call it. Me and her, my ex-husband, her father, it's the park by Lollipop Farms in Fairport, where it's like all barn stuff. And it worked out really well because my family's dairy farmers. So she really liked going there. And she was playing tug of war with this kid on July 5th and she fell and she got up and she couldn't walk. And I thought she broke her leg. Like we went home, I examined her and she was fine. And then she just started limping and she went to preschool the next day. And I got a phone call saying, hey, your daughter's limping. Is she okay? I was like, yeah, she's fine. She fell. I don't beat my kid. Cause I know that's what's running through everybody's saying. And I was like, we were making fun of it. We were calling her Pirate Peg Leg. She was like hobbling around and laughing and joking with it and everything. And a week later, I was going to this boot camp workout after work, and I get a phone call like after I'm done with my workout, and I had like 7 missed calls from her dad and like 3 from my mom. And I was like, what is going on? So I called everybody back, and Ben was like, we had to go to the hospital. Daycare said when I picked her up that she stopped moving her hand, like her entire one side of her body, like her leg froze. So that's why she was a pirate. And then her arm started to not work. So he called her pediatrician, and our pediatrician's just like, take her to the ER. So I ran home. I didn't even change. I'm still in my sweaty workout clothes. I grab Lovey and her blankie and I run straight to the ER. And she is this happy child sitting in the kids' pediatric ER with her frozen nightgown on, just smiling and happy and does not a care in the world, just completely oblivious. She did nothing whatsoever. And her dad was tired and I was tired, and we had x-rays. And then about, I want to say 2 a.m., we had a CT scan. And at that point I ran out to McDonald's and came back because that was the only thing that was open for food. And then we got admitted. So a full 12 hours, because they showed up there at 3:30 in the afternoon. A full 12 hours, 4:30, 5 o'clock a.m., 5 in the morning is when we got a room at Galisano's. And then that night, because we had a CT scan. They said they saw something and they couldn't figure out what it was. So then we had an MRI, and full 24 hours, about 4:30 in the afternoon is when the nurse staff came in and said, your daughter has a brain tumor. We don't know how bad it is. We don't know what it is. And she's playing on her iPad, like oblivious in the bed. And we're just like, okay. And we're just like, what do we do? And they're like, the doctor will be back, because it was just the resident. And I was like, okay then. So we call our moms, and our parents come running, and then the doctor came back, and the doctor's like, I want to say maybe it was like 2 hours, like 7:00. And he's like, your daughter has an inoperable brain tumor. We don't know what kind it is, because we can't tell on the scan what type, because usually you apparently can tell what type. And he's like, we can't tell what type. We have to do more testing. We don't know what your path forward is, but that's all we know right now. So we were left with we were left with, you have a tumor. Right. And we're like, okay, this is great. This is wonderful. And Ben and I, we went to dinner. Well, my parents and her and Ben's parents, they stayed in the room with Zoe. Well, we just ran to get dinner with my brother and my sister-in-law. And I start getting phone calls. My dad posted on Facebook that his daughter has a brain tumor, or his granddaughter has a brain tumor.
Oh my gosh.
And I call him and I was like, what are you doing? I was so pissed.
It's like, oh, that's so hard. You're like, he means well, and he's just trying to process it. But at the same time, like, what the fuck?
Oh, yeah. I was just like, Dad, what is wrong with you? But yeah, it was just like, okay. So went back, spent the night. Doctors the next day, like, so there's two types of brain tumors for kids. There's JPA, which is juvenile polycystic astrocytoma. And then there's DIPG, which is diffuse intrinsic pontine glioma. And you want the JPA. You don't want the DIPG, because the JPA, chemotherapy, you should be good. Go into remission. You're fine. DIPG, you have 9 months to live. And they couldn't tell. Her tumor presented so weird in the scan that it was just necrotic on the inside. So like there was it was like an egg pretty much. So there was like a hard shell, and the entire inside was dead. So that's why they couldn't see what type of cells it was. They couldn't determine what it was. So we were like, we can do a biopsy and we can start her on radiation and we can go from there. And we chose to do all of that because we're like, if we can have a chance to extend this more than 9 months, if we screw this up, like this could be horrible. Yeah. And we did the biopsy on July 18th, 2016. So she fell July 5th, went to the hospital July 11th. Biopsy was July 18th. The biopsy was probably the hardest thing out of everything besides her passing that we've had to go through, because she walked in there with a full toothy grin, and she walked out of there, half of her face was paralyzed.
Oh, wow.
And we were not expecting that. And it took everything in me to not cry in front of her. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we went to the PICU and we're just like, we're not having visitors, because if we can barely hold ourselves together, we don't want people freaking out in front of her. So we wouldn't let anybody come and see us until we were ready and were able to talk to people, because that was, it was not anticipated. Like I've seen kids, like in the 1 week span, I like did a lot of research and I knew like paralysis was a thing, but they usually presented with paralysis for their tumor presentation, not you go into surgery and you come back and you're paralyzed. And that was really, really hard. But after that, like we got a phone call saying, we need you to, well, even the doctor says, I still don't know what it is. Even after the biopsy.
Surgery? Oh gosh.
They had no idea. He's like, I can't tell. It's all necrotic tissue. I don't know what it is. We're sending it out. You should have your results in like 3 weeks.
Oh man.
but they're not waiting that long. So they wanted us to, we started radiation right away. So that was the good thing, is we started radiation right away. We found out it was DIPG when one of the radiologists in passing is like, "Oh, we heard your kid has DIPG. Oh, that's great if a doctor tells us what our kid has."
No.
Because like they found out before, like this, the results came that morning and no one told us. And it was like, okay. So
That is such a terrible way to find out.
yeah, I remember going to the room while she was in there getting her radiation with the mask on, and they're like, "So you don't have any options. There's clinical trials and there's stuff around the world, but you have no options. Nothing's offered for it. There's no protocol," as they say. And I'm an engineer. I'm a mechanical engineer, and her father's a computer engineer. So we're very analytical, I guess. And I did a deep dive into every single clinical trial that there ever possible was, and Facebook groups and everything. And I have a bunch of friends that are teachers, and being off for the summer, they also assisted me in my research, which they have a wonderful working Excel spreadsheet that is still used today by other parents. But it was like a, what the heck do we do next? Because we had the 30 days of radiation, and it's now the beginning of August. So, okay, we had a countdown of 5 more weeks until we ran out of stuff to do, where we're just gonna be like, okay, you're up to yourself, you're on your own, and you watch your kid die at that point. And that's one thing that we didn't want to do.
So they gave you 5 weeks of radiation, and then they said, go home and be well.
Yeah. We went to Disney. That was fun. But otherwise it was like, go home, be well. We reached out to, so we're lucky. There was a clinical trial in New York City that we reached out to them about, and we were able to go down and talk to Dr. Sudoween. Their trial was closed. So we were a week too short, or we found out a week too late. That was the problem.
Oh my God.
And then there was another trial in London, but it wasn't open yet. And so we were like 6 months too early. And there wasn't really anything else in the United States. A bunch of stuff that didn't cross the blood-brain barrier, or just made your kids sick and didn't really help them, or made them extremely aggravated or puffy. And we were hoping for quality of life. Yeah. Like if we had 9 months, we wanted to make the best 9 months possible. And Ben found this place in Germany, IOZK. It's an immunotherapy clinic. And we talked to them, and we sent their information to our doctors, because we're like, is this hogwash? Like, it's weird. It's in Germany. I'm scared shitless of going over there. I've never been overseas to Europe. And they're like, yeah, you can come over. If you come over, you have to come over in 3 weeks. And this was now mid-September. So in 3 weeks, we decided we're going to do this. We had to raise $60,000.
Fuck.
Get her a passport, get accommodations, find flights, and pack up our stuff and go to Germany. And we would be there. We got there end of October. So right after her 4th birthday is when we flew out, and we were there until right before Christmas.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
How do you navigate trying to find these trials, trying to get everything set up and all of that, while having just this overwhelming, crushing sadness and grief, like existing, this hopelessness?
Facebook, honestly, it was a godsend at that point. There's 3 groups. There's a purely research group for DIPG on Facebook, and I was told, I can't remember. Oh, Dr. Coronas, who's our doctor, he got me hooked up with a mom in Syracuse, Linda Poole. Today's her birthday, actually. Her son, Charlie, had DIPG. He was 14 at the time. So he got me connected with her. And they were about 3 months ahead of us in the cancer schedule. They weren't doing the same stuff as we were, but they were diagnosed 3 months ahead of us. And she told me about the Facebook groups. And that's how I got connected with it. And there's parents who are like, what works, what doesn't work, what's new, what's not new. And you just search and you make a spreadsheet. And it was navigating that, emailing and reaching out to doctors, asking their opinions on things, and still working full time. So that's not stopping.
It's so much to have to do. It's an incredible amount of work.
Yeah.
And more so emotional exhaustion that just runs through you.
Yeah, I think at that point I just kind of like shut down emotionally. Like it was just kind of, my life did not matter at that moment. I'm a black wall. I was getting up at 4:00 in the morning to go work out because I needed to do something to start my day. So I was doing that and then being home by 6 a.m. to get her up ready for preschool, then me up and ready for work. And yeah, I think I don't know how I functioned through all of it.
Yeah, it is one of those weird, I don't know what the word is, but like weird things that overcomes us when you're in the midst of those situations. You just function on so much less.
Yeah, like how did I operate on such little sleep? And I look back at photos and I was like, I was rail thin, and like I just don't even know how we did it all, like how we managed and came through it. And yeah, but I remember being, it was basically we go to Germany or we do nothing. And I was lucky enough where I could work remote. So when we went, I didn't want to go, but looking back, I am so thankful that we were able to go. We met other families who I still talk to their parents. I still talk to the parents today. We were the last surviving child out of everybody.
Oh, wow.
Which was really hard because just watching everybody else's kids that you met pass away and you're like, you know, it's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we made, like with the families, like we made the most of it. Like we would all go out to dinner. We would all travel. We would do everything we possibly could in Europe while we were there because you buy a $30 train ticket and you go to Paris or Amsterdam or someplace. And yeah, it's just crazy that we were there it seems like we were there for like a year or two, but we were only there for 3 months, just the amount of time. And I remember getting into an argument coming back because Ben didn't want to leave, because that means that we have to go back to reality and we have to go back to what's next. And I'm just like, I want to go home. I wanted to have Christmas at home. And that was my big thing. I was like, we can't have Christmas here. I was like, we love it here and it's fun, but we can't do it.
Was it a 3-month trial or you chose to end it and go home?
So it was a blood transfusion for immunotherapy. And we were there, the first 2 weeks was they would take your blood and spin it, get white blood cells, red blood cells separated, and put it back into your body. And then you wait a week and then they inject you again with your steroided white blood cells, whatever they did to it. And then they do it one more time. And then you have to come back once a month. So we flew back once a month for 3 days. Oh, January, wow. February, and March, we would fly back to Germany. And you'd have to have an MRI before you fly back to see if there's any progression. And so we were doing MRIs and flying, and I'm lucky I have she was a great flyer. I'm so lucky with that. But it was just
a long trip.
We had a system. we'd fly, we'd get off the plane in Frankfurt, we'd stop, we'd get on the train to go to Cologne. We get off the train in Cologne, we get a giant pretzel and a giant baguette, and we go to the apartment. And one of my most favorite photos of her is she's standing in front of the apartment, leaning against the door, waiting for the lady to come out, just eating her baguette with like this giant H&M scarf wrapped around her, because we got her that when we were in Amsterdam. And she was just like, I was just like, you look so cute. And it's like one of my favorite photos. Like you'd have no idea she was sick. You have no, like, you couldn't tell. She was a completely normal kid. And when the tumor started to progress again, we tried different drugs. The one drugs that everybody's like, it doesn't work. And I was like, well, what we can try it. What harm's it going to do? Because shit's already going down.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And it wasn't bad. It was $14,000 for 7 pills.
Oh my God.
Was a lot.
Holy crap.
Yeah. My wife's chemo was like that. Some of her pills were like $20,000 a month.
I remember we're in the infusion floor on Strong, and I remember being on my computer trying to pay my credit card bill on the phone with the drug company and be like, just give me 1 second until this goes through and then you can charge my card again, like trying to balance everything. And I'm just like, this is crazy. Like, this is insanely crazy. And it's some of my best memories through that time were when we were on the infusion floor, though. Like, she would run down the hall with her IV in her port, and I would have to chase after her with the pole so that way she wouldn't rip it down.
No.
Like, she would just run. Like, she's running and I'm running, and there's the guy who's making balloons for people, and I'm just like, sorry, excuse me, like just trying to keep up, because she was such a fun child. And I just remember through all of it, like, not showing emotion. Like, that's like just trying to keep everything stable, I guess.
So you felt showing emotion would unstabilize things or destabilize things?
Yeah. Like, it was just not, it just wasn't okay to be upset in front of her in my eyes. I wanted her, and she lived the most normal life possible, besides every other Thursday having to go to Strong. Like, it was completely and utterly normal. Like, she was in school, she was in dance, she was a cheerleader. And it was just like, I was so grateful that she could do those things, but I'm just like, I know it's fleeting. Because her radiation, we had to redo it in almost exactly a year after her first diagnosis. So we had to do another 12 rounds of radiation.
Fuck.
Oh, wow. Jesus.
Yeah. And then that wore off in December. So we did another 10 rounds in December.
Oh my gosh.
And then that wore off. And then we did another 10 rounds in March of 2018. And I was calculating the half-life and the rate of decline in my head as to how much, if we do it now, how much further is this going to give us? Because, like, it doesn't last as long every single time. And when we got towards the last time, so June-ish 2018, she started to really decline again. And we knew that because she would drool, and we'd have bandanas or like masks, but like not the snood masks that go up over your face. Yeah. She would wear those to school and stuff like that, just for the drool. And we knew when that picked up, that means that the tumor was growing. And I remember getting to an argument with Ben because he's like, I'm going to do another round of radiation. And I was like, no.
This is in June?
Yeah, this is in June 2018. I was like, I've done the math. It's going to give us a week That's how much longer it would give us. And I was like, it's not, she handles it great, but it's not worth it anymore.
Yeah.
And she, at that time in 2018, she was the only person in the entire world who had 4 full rounds of radiation on one spot. And I was like, even if some miracle happens, she's never going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm okay with that. But I'm just like, what is this going to do to her when she grows up? It's her pons. Like, that's where everything is and all your functioning. And yeah, so I had many milestones throughout the entire process. So they were having Christmas back at home, getting through Germany, getting through her dance recital, getting through preschool, graduating preschool. Then it was getting through cheerleading, because that was horrible. I do not understand cheer parents whatsoever. So, I was just like, this is
CJ is one of them.
My daughter is a cheerleader, and
we should say
I'm not a fan. Not a fan.
I was just like, we have to be at the football field at like 7:30 in the morning on Sundays. I was like, she was a flag cheerleader. I was like, this is horrible. It's like, what is wrong with people? Why do you put yourself through this? And I was like, it's
There's
devotion.
a lot about cheer that I have that opinion of.
Oh my God. We'll reminder to not let my kid get into cheer.
Yeah.
Seriously. My daughter started in flag, and she is now going to be a junior next year. So she's been in it for a while.
Yeah.
It's been an interesting journey. I'll just say that.
Yeah. No, understandable.
Yeah. She's like, I get it. I say less.
Exactly.
Yeah. I was like, oh, well, it could have been worse. There could have been worse things, like hockey, which is expensive, and also
true.
Really early in the morning.
So take us so this is June. So, and then you said she passed in July, right? So what does this final month look like? Or 6 weeks?
Final month. We graduated kindergarten. And it was like, that was the one time where I like cried my eyes out. Cause like in the kindergarten, she went to Martha Brown, and all the kids, they get up there and they say what they want to be when they grow up.
Oh, God.
And I never deterred her from anything. And she's like, I want to be a makeup girl. She wanted to be a makeup artist. That was what she wanted to do. And so she got up there, and like, you can't really understand her, but the teachers did. And then she said that, and I'm just like, I'm losing my mind. And people are like, oh, if she wants to be a makeup girl, they mailed us like 2 boxes of nail polish, and my friends at Mary Kay consultant, like, we'll come do a makeover, and we'll come let you put makeup on people. And I was just like, it's like the end of June, and I was like, guys, she can barely move right now. I was like, I can't do this to her, to get her hopes up to try to do something when she's just not functioning. And the last week of school was like right now, about a year ago, or not a year ago, 2018, June-ish. And I got sent a picture of this giant zebra, of her in her wheelchair and this giant zebra from the Brooks Hill before and after school care program. And they're like, can she bring it home? And I was like, no, you cannot bring the giant zebra home. And then 2 days later, she went to Camp Good Days for camp, and she brought home a giant zebra.
No way.
My gosh.
She gets off the bus, and I'm just like, what? And they're like, she really wanted it. I was like, yeah, I could tell that she really wanted it, because I already told her no once, and now she has this. And I'm just like, what am I going to do with a giant zebra? I don't know what happened to the giant zebra, but I was like, it's huge. It was bigger than her. And after Camp Good Days, I told Ben, I was like, this is it. She's declining fast. And if we want her friends to say something, if we want people to say something, we need to do it soon. So we opened up our house on June 30th, and I was like, our house will be open. Come by, say hello, sit, read her a book. She's in good spirits, but she might not be talking because that started to go away. And so we had a full day of people in and out, friends, counselors, coworkers, and they left. And July 1st was a Monday, and I remember going to work. I only worked for a few hours, came home. My mom and my aunt and uncle from Georgia were washing her for the day. And then July 2nd, my friend Christy came up for photos just because my friend Katie, so I'm in this group called The Patch. All of our kids are born October 2012, and we're all over the United States. So there's like 100 of us, and we all friends. We're all over the United States. We visit each other. We send each other birthday presents. And Katie in Denver, she's a photographer, and our friend lost her 1-year-old daughter. So she went out to California and did end-of-life photos for Katie and her family. And so it was one thing that I really, really wanted was I was just like, I always took photos of Zoey. Every single morning she would have her toaster waffle and a new outfit on and just a comment of, this is her outfit of the day. That's what she would do, is a Zoey outfit of the day. And so I really wanted these photos. So Christy came up from Ohio and she took them for us. And she was there July 1st through July 3rd. She didn't stay at the house. She stayed at her friend's house. And Zoey fell asleep July 1st. And she woke up in the afternoon. Zoey didn't wake up the morning of July 1st. She woke up in the afternoon of July 2nd. And her best friend was there at the time, and they were doing memory handprints and paint. And Joe, the bartender, I don't know if he's still a bartender or not, but we called him Joe the bartender, and he loved her. He's the Irish Joe from McConaughey's. If you ever met an Irish Joe at McConaughey's, that was him. He came over and he sat with her, and she just woke up and she was angry to say the least. Of she wanted to move and she wanted to talk and she couldn't.
Wow.
And it was so hard.
Yeah,
she was awake the entire night until we went to bed, like 9 or 10 o'clock. And I brought her into our bed because I didn't want to. I was sleeping in her bed with her for the past few nights, and I brought her into our bed. And her last words to me were, "I love you, Mommy." And like she couldn't fully say it, but it was just. I like tried to calm her down. I was like, it's okay. You don't have to say it. But it was just like, I can't believe those were her last words to me. Like, and I was like, I love you too. And she went to sleep, and then she just never woke back up. So that was July 2nd. July 3rd, we had our family over. A lady came over to do her nails because I know my daughter, and I know she would have wanted pretty nails. So somebody offered to come over and put gold gel on her nails. And I said, I don't want people in my house. And it's the 4th of July, and it was her favorite holiday. And that morning, I canceled everybody coming over, but my best friend, she's like, Brody, who at the time was, if she was 5, he was 8. She's like, he really wants to come over and see her. So he came over and he read her a book. And this was maybe 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning. We're on the couch, and I'm testing her oxygen breathing rate with my cell phone because that was what I did at the time. And the nursing staff came over, and Micah and B went home, and the nursing staff's like, it's time. And I was like, I know. And we called our parents, and we just sat with her. And like Ben's parents showed up, and my mom showed up, and I asked my mom, I was like, where's my dad? And she's like, I thought you said you were going to call your dad. I was like, I told you to call Dad. She's like, well, he's harvesting. It's hay season. I was like, I don't care if it's hay season. Call Dad. So my dad came, and about it was heart-wrenching because she stopped breathing and her heart stopped 3 different times.
Jeez.
The first time, it scared the ever-living shit out of me. And I've never seen somebody pass away. And I was holding on to her, and Ben had her feet and I had her head, and my dad was next to me, and she just stopped breathing, and she like just sat straight up and her eyes were wide open. And I was like, this is weird. And I was like, oh my God. And then she went back down, and I was like, and she's not breathing. And then I was like, my dad's like, is that her heartbeat? And I was like, I was still in shock as to what happened. And I was like, yeah, it's coming back. Her heartbeat was coming back. And we were like that for another hour. And her heart slowed and stopped again. And then it came right back. And I looked at Ben and I was like, we can't do this anymore. And I was like, we can't do this to her anymore. And I was like, I don't know what to do. And he's like, we can give her some morphine. So we gave her a little bit of morphine. And as soon as we did, her heart stopped again for the last time. And it was not as dramatic as the first time. And it was just so surreal because I was just like, is it going to come back? Because we didn't know. Yeah. And it just didn't. And I looked at my dad and I was like, put your phone down, because he had his phone in his hand.
He's posting on Facebook.
I was like, put your phone down. He's like, I was going to call Grandma. I was like, put your phone down. You can call her later. And I was like, I was just like, no, stop with the Facebook. But like, we were just like, what do we do? And we called the nursing staff and they took care of everything. And I was texting them through the entire time because they weren't there at the time. They left us have our privacy. They came earlier in the day, and we were able to get one photo of just us, of me, Ben, and Zoe, and our dog. And then one photo of our family, which was really, really nice. And then it was just people. Just a lot of people.
Yeah.
They swarm and then they go.
Yeah.
It's like flies on shit.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good way to put it.
It's like there's a part of it that's like comforting. I kind of remember, I remember it a little bit. I also remember it, obviously, CJ, when Ariana passed. And I think there's definitely something that is comforting about it because, you know, CJ, as you talk about a lot, like when everyone leaves and it gets quiet and you're like, oh, fuck, like I don't have someone to take care of anymore. I don't have medicine to give, you know, like all those things that you were like doing for 2 years, 5 years, just don't happen anymore. They don't need to be done. And it's, I mean, you talk about it a lot, CJ, like losing your identity because it becomes who you are for or it feels like so long. In some cases, you know, 2 years, you're like, it's not that long, but it really feels like it was forever.
It becomes your normal. It's 100% your normal. And I picked up Juno, the dog, May 1st. I brought Juno home. Was it May 1st or June 1st? I think it might have been June 1st. I brought Juno home. And because me and her father, we weren't doing well together. And she's like, I want a baby brother, a baby sister. I was like, how about a dog? This is not a time for a sibling. How about a dog? And I really wanted a dog. So I brought Juno home, and Juno's the only reason we got out of bed in the morning. Like it was the only reason. I'm so thankful for that dog. Like she's the only reason we survived, I feel like, for the first month or so. Like it's just.
What does that time look like after she passes, after the people stop checking in, they stop coming over, and now you're forced to start a new life. Like you have living again.
Yeah. It was a lot of packing things up, putting away toys, sorting through things, not in her room, but like in the toy room area, because I really wasn't ready. I didn't go back to work until September. After school started. It was when I went back to work. And so it was just taking the dog for a walk and cleaning the house and just trying to figure shit out, I guess. Trying to cope, because we were still emotionally not okay, but it wasn't like we were still grieving, but we were grieving so differently, where I wanted to talk about her all the time, and I wanted to see photos and sit with stuff. And it was the complete and utter opposite, where no photos, no talking, just close the door. And so that's kind of why I cleaned up a bunch of stuff and just sorted through stuff I wanted to keep, and then stuff I didn't, because we had a Facebook group or Facebook page, and we still have like about 14,000 people that follow it. And so people from all over the world would send us stuff. Every week she would get something new. So it wasn't normal for me to go through her things with her and be like, do you want this? Do you not want this? And we would donate stuff. So that's kind of what I did, because she would get gifts up until the last day. And it was just going through everything.
What made you want to talk and look at photos and go through things and like put that experience front and center in your life? What drove you to do that?
I realized through the entire process, we did a caring bridge, and I would update the caring bridge for everybody in my family. And that was the only time my emotions came out, was when I was writing the recap, like the day we signed the DNR, the days we had progressions. Like I wouldn't process it until I could talk about it and put it down. And to me, that's kind of how it felt. Like it was just a little bit of processing of, I had this amazing girl and she's not here anymore. And just holding on to that, hoping for any little glimmer or spark or memory that would come from everything and through all of her stuff and from talking about her.
Yeah, and I think it feels like a common experience where others in our lives try to avoid talking about our loss in an attempt to help us and not hurt us. But I think a lot of people in their loss want to talk about their loved one. They want those memories. I mean, I remember talking about my wife to like her group of friends when we were putting stuff together for the funeral. And as painful as it was really nice to hear kind of the stories, maybe even stories that I didn't know, about her and stuff like that too. But
yeah, I completely agree with that. Like that was just like hearing the weird random stuff that she did at school with her friends, and teachers would tell me that at her funeral, and just it was how I coped, was talking about her.
So these initial stages, kind of like working through them, picking up, going through stuff, photos, all that. How does your grief progress through these last 6 years?
My grief kind of got put into a black box until recently, because when I went back to work in September of 2018, like me and her dad, we weren't doing well, and we ended up getting divorced at the beginning of 2019. and I had to move out. So I left everything except for a few bags of things of hers. And I've slowly gotten stuff back and sorted through stuff over the years. But me and the dog up and left, and it was kind of just trying to survive.
Yeah.
Because I never lived on my own. Like right out of college, we lived together in an apartment. So it's like I'm now trying to sort through stuff 15 years after the fact. And then I found a house I really liked. I found a boyfriend I really love. And then COVID hit. And so
that old chestnut.
Yeah. So dealing with that. And then I got to a point in 2019 during COVID where I was just like, was it 2019? 2020 during COVID where I was like, I think I need to go to therapy. And I went to virtual grief therapy, which was an interesting experience. That it was just weird, and I don't think I got anything out of it. But me like, yeah, I'm fine. How was your day? My day was fine. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Like it wasn't great. And over the past few years, I've realized like I've just slowly started to shut down further and further. And last year I made a cognitive effort in November of last year that I am going to actually go to therapy and try therapy and not just like do anything, and like try to process my grief, my loss, my divorce, because all of that just kind of it all happened at once. And I never really dealt with it. And years later, realizing I always thought I was like, it'll be fine. I'm a strong person. It'll be fine if I just keep moving as it is. And then realized years later, I was like, it's not okay. It's just not okay.
It always catches up to us.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's the past few months, I have a lovely therapist. And it's funny because I walked into her office and without saying a word, I just started crying. And I don't cry. Like I cry. I'm crying on this. I don't cry. Like even before then, since Zoe's funeral, since COVID started, it's been a no for me. So I feel like things are I'm finally processing things a lot better. So.
And you think most of this is finally being open to therapy?
Yeah. Yeah. The talk therapist, I really like her, but we're going to be starting EMDR. Yes. So we're going to be starting that. And that was one thing where I was just like, talk therapy, it's never really worked for me. So I wanted to find somebody that would focus on that. And it was kind of a kick in my pants. And I just felt honestly really comfortable being able to open up and speak.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I did EMDR for years.
Yeah.
When my wife was sick for some other stuff, and it was super, super effective. And I know others have had really good luck with it as well.
Yeah. Like I did a lot of research on it because I was at a point where I was like, I have to do something. I can't live. I was just emotionless. Like there was one moment where I look back at a photo. We were at a wedding in 2022, and I was like, I remember being happy there, like actually happy, but I guess I don't feel that way that often. I don't feel like I'm in the moment. I still feel like I'm in a box when I'm around my friends and I'm just like coasting through, and I was like, I can't live like this. So I did a lot of research, and I was like, this is the road I'm going down.
Is there any ways that you reconnect to Zoey or kind of keep her memory alive for you?
Yeah. So things that I do personally is I'm outside, always outside. That's one thing that me and Juno, she just had knee surgery. So she's finally healed. So we go for hikes and stuff like that early in the mornings. And that's one thing that I just feel like I always feel her there in some fashion. When I do charity work through the charity that I run for her, it's just going to people's houses when I drop off playhouses and just like talking to their kids. It just feels really, really, I'm just like, I know that she would be happy there. And that's one thing is like, I know she's with me when I do those things as well. And she's really proud that I do that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have one or two of your favorite memories with her?
Yeah, one of my favorite ones is when Inside Out, the first one came out, we would run, she would do a naked butt dance. So before we would go to bed, she'd like strip down naked and run through the upstairs. And I would always end up like picking her up, throwing her over my shoulder, slapping her butt, shoving her butt in her dad's face. Like I loved that. Like we would play hide and seek. Like I'd hide under the bed, like our before bedtime routines. Those are my favorite thing. The running around, just like talking with her, asking her how things are. And because she knew she was sick, but she didn't know. And like, we didn't tell her, she didn't ask, but that was one of my favorite things. When we were in Germany, we went to Paris for Thanksgiving and we took her to the top of the Eiffel Tower. And whenever we would get on a plane again, she's like, are we going back to Paris? It's like, no.
Oh my God.
No, we are not going back to Paris. We have gone all over the place, but we are not going back to Paris. So we scattered her ashes in Paris because of that. And that's one of my,
love that.
My favorite things with her is she wanted to go back to Paris. And I was like, why? We're not going back to Paris. Most of the time, another favorite memory I have is when she's running through my parents' Florida house in her underwear, just like screaming bloody murder. This was March 2018, laughing hysterically, chasing the dog. Like everything is her running around laughing. Like that's always my favorite things of her. She was a spitfire little child.
Yeah, it sounds like she just maintained that energy through her whole life.
It's ironic because she loved the song Firework by Katy Perry, and it's ironic that that's the day that she passed away because that is her persona to a T. And
you said she loved July 4th. That was her favorite holiday?
Yeah, it was her favorite holiday.
What made it her favorite holiday? Fireworks?
The fireworks. Yeah,
That's
just
amazing.
The fireworks and being with family. And she just had so much fun with that. It was that and Thanksgiving, or not Halloween, because she loved dressing up.
I mean, it's like bittersweet, but also kind of beautiful that she ended up passing on July 4th.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you a question about the charity work and when you started that and just how that has grown or how that has helped you in terms of processing.
Yeah. So the charity started when she passed away. Like weird things would happen. Like my phone was underneath the passenger seat and we're driving home from the funeral home and it starts playing one of her favorite songs from YouTube. And I was like, I don't know how this is happening. Like weird stuff was happening. And I was like, we had a bunch of extra money because people would donate. And I was like, we have to do something with this and we have to do something to honor her. Otherwise she's going to haunt us. And yeah, I was like, it would be like, she's going to haunt us. So our Facebook page was Zoey's Fight and I turned it into Zoey's Light. And that's what we did. And we're like, we can pay it forward. We can help families in the area. People paid for us they helped with flights and chemo and drugs, but they also paid for us and got us into the White House. And she wanted to touch the moon. So she was able to go to the Smithsonian and we got a private tour of the Statue of Liberty and all these things in New York City. And like people did these things for us and helped us. And I was like, we need to help other kids that are in the same boat with like little acts of joy. And that's how it started, is donating books to the hospital and just kids who had cancer in the area, sending them gifts. And then I got hooked up with the social network of social workers in Rochester. And now they email me for bills and stuff like that for families that are going through hard times. So it's like, yeah, sure. I have a very hard time saying no. And I am blessed that the charity has been able to still bring in donations through a golf tournament where I'm able to spend the money. And I donate to families every year, multiple times throughout the year. And ACE, Architecture, Construction, Engineering, they build playhouses and they donate them to sick kids. And they partnered up with us. So I help find the sick kids to help donate the playhouses. And it's just,
that's amazing.
I feel like doing this, I was like, yeah, I love doing this. It's one of these things that it brings a smile to my face, knowing that there's a smile to other kids' faces, because I know that Zoey would be so happy. And I know what a relief it is as a parent to have your kid happy for a moment when they're going through so much.
Yeah.
Like somebody asked, one of the social workers was like, we wanted to do something for our family picnic and we're having all these kids, but we wanted to have a DJ to play some kids music, but we can't afford it. I was like, I got it. If I can get kids dancing and screaming and laughing, I'm all, this is what we were made for. So I was like, yes, I got the DJ. Don't even worry about that. I was like, it's fine. I was like, she's like, it's not our normal ask. And I was like, no, but it's the fun ask. It's the fun stuff that I like to do, because I feel like I can still do something.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Where can people find out about the charity?
So it's zoeyslight.org, ZOEYS Light. There's also a Facebook page. It's still under Zoey's Fight DIPG, but if you Google Zoey's Light, it'll come up. Based out of Fairport, Rochester, New York, Churchill, depending on where you live and where you're Googling from, apparently. But yeah, Western New York. And I try to keep everything as up to date as possible. So it's just me that really runs it. Ben's family does the golf tournament each year. So there's a golf tournament October 13th at Wildwood. It was just announced today. So we're excited for that. Nice. Yeah, no, it's my little pride and joy thing that I'm an engineer by day, but I really, really enjoy doing this. And when I deliver playhouses, some of the parents are like, oh, can you tell Zoey's parents I said hi? I was like, yeah, I'm Zoey's mom. And they're like, what? And I was like, yeah, this is what I do. And some of the kids I work with, the teenagers that help us with the playhouses, they're like, so this isn't your real job? And I was like, no, I have a day job. I mean, I gotta live, but I was like, this is my side job.
That's awesome. We're grateful that you were willing to share, and we got to hear a little bit more about Zoey as well, and everything that you've been doing in her name and all of that good stuff. And yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, no problem. I don't think I've ever shared all of it, so I'm glad to have. So thank you guys for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Day After. You can find this podcast and more at our website at www.thedayafter.com. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd really appreciate if you could take a moment to leave us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts.